All right. Today, we are diving deep into a story that is short, quiet, and absolutely unforgettable. Katherine Mansfield's The Fly. It's one of those pieces of modernist literature that really gets under your skin and stays there because it packs such a huge psychological punch. And really, it all boils down to this one single, deeply unsettling question. To figure out the answer, we have to look really closely at this strange, cruel act and the completely shattered world that it came from. So let's start with the act itself. So picture this. We're in the cozy office of a man who we only know as the boss. His old friend Woodifield has just left, and the visit has stirred up a really painful memory. They were talking about their sons who were both buried in Belgium because of the war. He locks his office door, and he's ready for it. He's expecting this big wave of grief that he's actually gotten used to, what the story calls a great sobbing. But this time, it just doesn't come. He feels absolutely nothing. And it's right there in that moment of total emotional numbness that he notices the fly. What follows is just this bizarre, methodical cruelty. At first you think it's an act of mercy. He actually saves the fly from the inkpot. But then something just flips. A strange compulsion takes over. He starts dropping blobs of ink on it, watching it fight for its life, cleaning itself off. He even feels, and this is a quote, a real admiration for the fly's courage. But he does it again, and then again, until finally the little fly spirit is just broken, and it drowns in the ink. So what on earth could explain this? It's just so bizarre. Well, to understand the boss, you really have to understand the world he's living in. See, this isn't just a story about one guy. It's about an entire generation trying to process an absolutely unimaginable trauma. And this timeline, it puts everything into perspective. For Katherine Mansfield, the war was this source of incredible personal grief. Her beloved younger brother was killed back in 1915. But her story goes way beyond her own pain. I mean, it was published just 4 years after the war ended, and it taps right into this collective sense of loss and disillusionment from a world that was just completely shattered by industrial-scale slaughter. In fact, 1922, wow, what a year for modernism. You had T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland come out, Virginia Woolf's Jacob's Room, and right alongside them was Mansfield's The Fly. All of these incredible artists were trying to grapple with the psychological wreckage that the war had left behind. So, with all that context in our back pocket, we can start to unpack the story's really powerful central symbol. I mean, people have been arguing about this little episode with the fly for 100 years, but the interpretations really fall into two main camps. So first up, you can read it as an allegory, a big symbolic story. From that angle, the fly is pretty obviously the helpless young soldiers, right? You know, like the boss's son or Mansfield's brother, just thrown into these overwhelming, terrible situations. And the boss, well, he becomes a symbol of that older generation. The generals, the politicians, the guys in charge who sent millions of young men to die from their comfortable offices, maybe never really understanding the horror they were causing. And we have a pretty good hint that Mansfield herself was thinking along these lines. In a letter she wrote the very same week she finished The Fly, she actually brings up this famous, really bleak line from Shakespeare's King Lear. It pushes this idea that the universe isn't just uncaring, but maybe it's actively cruel. That we're all just playthings for some higher power, whether you call that power God or fate or just other people. But okay, there is another way to read this story. It's a much more intimate reading, one that has less to do with big social commentary and way more to do with the drama that's unfolding inside the boss's own head. Now, to get this, we need to bring in an idea from psychoanalysis that was brand new at the time: repetition compulsion. It sounds complicated, but the idea, which came from Freud, is that when something is so traumatic that you just can't process it, your mind will unconsciously try to restage it, to relive it in a smaller, more controlled way, so you can try to get a handle on those unbearable feelings. And when you look at it that way, this is exactly what the boss seems to be doing. He can't face his grief head on, so he puts it all onto something else. The fly's desperate, horrible struggle becomes a stand-in for his son's struggle on the battlefield. By controlling the fly's fate,
saving it, tormenting it, and then killing it. He's unconsciously trying to get some kind of control over the memory of his son's death, a death he was completely powerless to stop. But here's the absolute kicker, the thing that makes this story so chilling. The experiment doesn't work. He doesn't feel better. There's no catharsis, no understanding. After he throws the dead fly in the trash, he gets this horrid, wretched feeling, and he tries to remember, what was I just thinking about? And he can't. His attempt to master the trauma didn't lead to healing. It just led to a terrifying, empty void, an eraser of memory and feeling altogether. And that is what makes this short, bleak little story such a masterpiece of modernist fiction. It just perfectly captures the anxieties and artistic strategies of that entire era. I mean, it checks all the boxes for modernism. You have the deep dive into a character's fractured mind. You have the total reliance on a symbol instead of just spelling things out. And of course, that deep sense of ambiguity. Mansfield is not giving us any easy answers here. She's creating this atmosphere of emotional numbness that was a perfect mirror for the spiritual exhaustion of that post